Hello everybody, welcome to another video by Liminal Spaces. So we're talking about Dune. It's Dune weekend, which is awesome. We went and saw Dune in an IMAX theater, which was a real blast. It was far away, so we kind of made a day of it. We went out to breakfast, then we went and saw the film, and then we came back. We got tacos, and yeah, it's cool. It's been a good one. The theater was set up in a rather strange way. So we saw it in Denver because that was the closest really large IMAX to us. And it's not a real IMAX, of course. And I need to clarify all of this because this gets kind of weird. So to me, IMAX means large frame film that is shown on a giant screen. And that screen typically is square. They don't do film, of course. Most all the IMAX theaters in the country do it digitally. And I do not have a problem with digital presentation at all. You know, I'm not the type that buys records because it has to be analog, especially when you consider the fact that for most of my life, everything that's ever been recorded is digital, right? If you go buy a Radiohead album on record, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot because they're recorded digitally. So they just took a digital signal and put it on a record, which is completely useless. But that's a whole other thing, right? I'm fine with digital. So we went in and we're in the lobby, we're checking things out, and there's this really odd, I guess, big stand-up poster of Dune that it was literally homemade. Like somebody made this stand-up and put it there in the lobby for us to see, which I think is really wonderful and kind of weird, right? It's a little bit strange. I guess they wanted more Dune stuff and they didn't receive enough, maybe. I'm not sure. But yeah, so they have this cool, interesting, not professional piece of art in the front there, which was super fun and weird. Then we went to the checkout stand and we were able to get the Dune cup and the Dune bucket. Now, I do want to point out that this is not the bucket with the top piece, right? I think that was only at AMC theaters. There's a top piece that you can get that you have to put your hand down in. It's gotten some interesting press. We didn't get that. We didn't go to the right theater for that, and that's just fine. So after we bought our concessions, we went ahead and went into the theater, and it was really cool. I mean, it's a huge screen. It's a very huge screen. My problem with it is it's square. Okay, now those aren't the exact dimensions, right? But close enough. It doesn't look like our televisions or monitors. Now, of course, we went through this kind of back in the 90s, I would say. I think it would be the 90s, maybe a bit in the late 80s, where movies were wide and TVs were square. And this did a really interesting thing because if you wanted to see the film the way the director intended it, then it would be letterboxed. You'd have a black bar across the top of your television and a black bar across the bottom so you could see the whole movie screen. But the problem is it makes your television smaller, right? You lose the top and the bottom. Now, over time, the shape of a film screen has kind of become the norm, which I'm really thankful for. So now, most TVs are widescreen and most monitors are widescreen. So when you get a 4K or a Blu-ray of a film, you can see it the way it was made without having to deal with black bars at the top and the bottom. But for the first time, I'm beginning to realize that IMAX is becoming a big deal. And I know that filmmakers want to get audiences back in the theater, right? They don't want you to just stream it from home 3 months down the road and pay the super cheap price. They want you to go to the theater. They want to get really nice numbers for their opening weekend. They want to continue the way things used to go in the theater before streaming. So IMAX is an interesting way to do it, right? To say you want to see this as big as you possibly can. And I do have to say, it was breathtaking how amazing it looked on that huge screen. And of course, the sound system was nice, right? I do believe at home, sound systems can begin to rival the sound systems in theaters. If you live in a place where you can turn it up a little bit, I feel like sound doesn't compete the way a screen competes, right? That IMAX screen is just huge. So it was really breathtaking to watch the thing, and I know that that's a tool that they want to use to get people into the theater. The problem is it's square, and this is the first time I think that we've had a director who truly utilizes the whole screen. Because I was wondering, like, okay, if you buy the original Dune, Dune 1, not the original, but Dune Part 1, then it's just letterboxed, right? Anything that was filmed in IMAX, they just cut the top and the bottom off. It's gone. We don't get to see it, right? There's no special features that include the IMAX full square screens with black bars on the right and the left of your television. And I wish they were there as a special feature, but they're not there. They literally just cut it down. But watching this film and looking at the setups that he created, they're beautiful. There's all kinds of shots where you've got like a worm in the bottom of the screen with all these people riding on it. And then there's helicopters flying up above that are getting blown up and destroyed. And I'm terrified that when we buy Dune Part 2 in 4K, it will just be the people riding the worm. That'll be the shot. And they'll cut the top off. Because they don't want to cut most of the worm off, and they don't want to cut the helicopters in half that are flying up above, right? They just have to choose one or the other. And I feel like in a lot of places, they're going to have to choose one or the other, and we are not going to get the same experience. And the experience was incredible. I believe this film is better than the first one. It's different. It's just slightly different. It's more methodical. It's a little bit slower, right? It reels you in a little bit more. You get a lot more story rather than, okay, I guess we got to go and get killed. Oh, shoot, we're dead. Thanks, bye, right? It's fine. That first movie is a great film, right? We're going to do a deep dive into both of them. But this one, I think, is just better. The music was amazing. And the music's great in the first one, but this one, I feel like it really drove the point home. It's really good. The way all of this is set up, it's a great film. But if you have to start hacking away at the images through the entire thing, this entire thing was shot in IMAX. And it makes me hope that they release the IMAX version. If you're willing to have black bars on the right and the left, then you're going to lose like a foot on either side. Like, I'm not kidding. This thing is square, right? You're losing everything off the sides in order to see the whole vision. But I think I would prefer that rather than the pan and scan or the crazy cutting that they're going to have to do in order to get this image onto our televisions. But I'm worried because if they just release it square with black bars on the right and the left, we're going to have the same thing that we had in the late 80s and the early 90s, which is most people saying, I don't like this. Why is my television all of a sudden half the size? You know? And I get that it's an education thing and that kind of stuff about film, right? But at the same time, it is annoying. It's weird. You know, why would you film it square when all of the TVs are rectangles? So it's a weird issue, and it's something I haven't been worried about it because I couldn't care less about the three random scenes that were put into uh, the Matrix 3 or whatever weird ass junk they put up in IMAX before, right? This is the first film that I've seen where they actually artistically utilize it, right? Oppenheimer didn't do it. That was a joke. That was just a joke. It doesn't matter what you watch Oppenheimer on, it'll always have the same effect. But this film, all that information matters. So for the first time, I'm thinking to myself, that might have been a mistake. Filming that way might have been a mistake. And I don't know which way it's going to go. Hopefully, they release a nice version that has either the pan and scan so that it can fill your whole screen, or you can have the black bars. And if you hate the black bars, you can just avoid them, right? But if you don't mind them, you can see the whole thing. But I hate that we have to make that choice. It's so weird, especially because we used to have square TVs. You know, what are we going to do in the future? Are we supposed to have two TVs? I don't know. I don't know. It's a really weird issue that I'm kind of worried about for the first time. But the film is incredible. There's this opening, not the opening, there's a part near the beginning where there's these people in suits who need to climb a rock face. So they're like, climb up those rocks. And they go running towards it and they just jump and they start to levitate. And you have these amazing shots of these people slowly levitating up this rock face, barely touching it, so that they can keep climbing, right? As they levitate up. There's no sound. I don't want to say there's no sound. We just saw it in the theater, right? I need to get a copy. I need to watch it again before I can do any kind of a deep dive or anything. But in that moment, for the first time in years, I literally felt like I was watching science fiction. There was no, it wasn't like the jetpack turned on and the flames shot out and you heard this sound and they slowly lifted off and the dust kicked up. No, they just magically floated up. And of course, we've seen it in the earlier film, right? They have those levitators. Of course, the head of the Harkonnens has the whole back brace that helps him to levitate. But it was used so masterfully in this. It was just magical. It was crazy. And it's a tiny, tiny thing. And they do that over and over again in this. It's really, really well done. I do have to point out, if you're sensitive about changes being made in an art form when it transitions from one artist to the other and from one medium to another, there are changes, right? You may want to avoid this if you're sensitive to that kind of stuff, because there are changes. I feel like it helped, because if you really wanted to truly capture, well, there's two things, right? Number one, can you truly capture Dune on film? And I mean literally. Can you truly, literally capture it on film? I don't know that you can. I don't know if you just took that book and said, this is the script, go. I don't know how enjoyable that film would be, to be perfectly honest. It'd be a lot longer, for one. And the tricks that you use in a novel versus the tricks that you use on film are very different. I think it would look really foreign to us. The only example that I can think of off the top of my head is probably the funniest play ever written. It's called Noises Off. If you ever get the chance to see an even slightly professional theater company do Noises Off, go see it. It is the funniest thing you will ever see. If you're in a crowded room, 200 people laughing their guts out because of the dumb stuff that's happening on stage, it is genius. It's so funny. And they made a film. Brilliant cast. They got Michael Caine. They got all kinds of amazing people. John Ritter. I can't remember everybody. Carol Burnett, I think, is in it. I, I think it's brilliant, right? They got all these amazing people. They knew what they were doing, and it's not that funny. It just doesn't translate because it's a play. And if they had the ability, and this is not an easy ability to have, I don't know that anybody actually has this ability, but if they had the ability to say, we need to make this into a movie, we need to edit it, we need to rewrite it, we need to cast it, of course, right? We need to do all the things that movies do in the way that movies do them to get the same result from the audience that you get in the theater. They did not do that at all. It's an okay movie. If you can get the chance to see Noises Off on film, I guess so. If you're bored, check it out. It's a cool premise, I guess, you know. But the play, it just destroys you. It's so funny. And I think the same thing is true for this. I believe that the director of this film has the ability, pretty good, to change the story of Dune so that it can be put on film and work. And that's great. It's so great. It's such a great film. We watched the first one, I think 2 days ago or yesterday. We watched it sometime before we went to see the new one, of course. And it's great. We had a blast, of course. I'm sure most of you did that as well, right? But, man, this second one, I just think he really, really nailed it. All right. Well, I think that's about all I have to say. If you want to see it, you absolutely should. I just saw it. I'm giving it a 10, just straight up. I can't really do the deep dive and the breakdown and all that stuff because I'm just too close to it. It was fantastic. If you liked the first one at all, I think you'll really like the second one. And if you haven't seen either of them, I guess I kind of think you should see the first one before you see the second one. If you haven't seen them at all, try to rent the first one or buy it or whatever you do, you know, so that you can see it and understand what's happening and just see if you like the idea of it. You know, do you want to see that and then go see the other? I would say you should see it in the theater. And that's another thing, right? If there's not an IMAX theater near you, what are you watching? That's curious to me. Maybe there's already a pan and scan version. Because I doubt the theater has black bars on either side. Right? I mean, that people would be demanding their money back. That would be ridiculous. So there must already be. Boy, that's crazy. This is one that I want to be able to compare them side by side. I'm going to try to do that. If they spend the money, and this is rough, this is my fear, right? If they spend the money to make a version that we can see the IMAX and the normal version, I guess, if they spend the money so that we can get both of those and compare them, I'm definitely going to do that. And it makes me wonder, how much of the original was IMAX? I don't remember. I don't think the whole thing was shot in IMAX. I think there was just certain scenes that were IMAX, but I'm not 100% sure. You know, I wasn't thinking about it at that time because no directors had really utilized it before that. People had shot in IMAX, of course. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that when you get someone who's visually so stunning, every inch matters, right? So, thoughts on Dune. Really great. Check it out. Absolutely. If you haven't yet, I'm sure you probably have. It's fantastic. 100% worth it. A plus, whatever. 10 loved it. So I'd like to point out the new setup that I've got. I put this new setup because I wanted to kind of have a background like my brother has. I think it's cool that he's got that background. So I'm just playing around, experimenting with this, trying to get a background that's similar to his. So for right now, I didn't put books on it because he's got the books covered, right? I could have a bunch of Ray Bradbury and stuff, but I'm trying to do a different thing, and it'll slowly evolve, I'm sure. Right now, I've got the Tom Paris plate. That's from Lower Decks. We've got the California class Starship flag. That's also from Lower Decks, right? For the Cerritos, of course. I've got the Philip K. Dick book that we're reading. I've got the iRobot book that we're reading. This is a Star Trek magazine, Time magazine, that they just put out that you can buy. Over here, I've got some of the stuff we've been talking about lately. I've got the Blade Runners. I've got Strange New Worlds, and I've got Dune up here. And of course, the Dune bucket and the Dune cup that we got at the theater. I've got the Strange New Worlds hardbound book. Now, I got that before we started the channel because I did want to start reading. I haven't read in so long. I'm not a big reader as it is, right? But years had passed, so I thought, I love this show. I should buy this book and see if it's any good. So I got the book, but now, of course, I'm reading all kinds of stuff, so I don't know if I'll ever get to that book. I don't know, but it's there, so that's cool. I've got a little reproduction of the ship from Strange New Worlds, the Enterprise. This we got from the Hallmark store, and they're selling it as a Christmas ornament, but it doesn't go on a tree. It's made to sit on a desk or on a table, so I'm not sure why they were trying to sell it as a Christmas ornament, but what that meant was after Christmas, it went massively on sale. So we got it for 75% off. So it was like $30 or something, which is probably about what it's worth. So I was fine with that. You know, I was happy about that because there's no way we could buy it at full price. Like it was honestly over $100. But at 75% off, it was really great. So that's kind of what I got going on here for right now. And that's slowly going to evolve and change as we talk about different things. And I just find different things to put up for fun. All right. If you enjoyed this, hit the like button. If you want to see more like this, definitely subscribe. We got a ton more. We got a ton more coming. We got the new setup, which is awesome. Have a great day.